everybody. I'm back at C2E2 for Comics Press. You're listening to Zoe Sugg and Ryan Browne off of God Hates Astronauts. Ryan, okay, I don't even know how to explain God Hates Astronauts. When people come into my store, I usually explain it to them as, yeah, right, I got this.
I like that.
I
like that. Keep going.
So I usually explain it as, Adult Swim shows if Adult Swim gave less of a crap about what they were doing.
Okay.
But at the same time, I very much appreciate the way that, your comic isn't just random for randomosity's sake. We've read webcomics, and then some of them are good, but, some of them are just very random and just sort of not with a point. And God Hates Astronauts actually has much of, a plot going for it, which is really cool. So yeah, that's sort of the synopsis for you guys. So Volume 3 has pretty recently came out, right?
Yeah, that came out in December.
Nice, okay. You said that was your favorite earlier, right?
Yeah, that's where the story really started to click and pull together nicely. It's kind of a weird history of the book. I did it as a webcomic for about 6 years and self-published it. And then I put together a hardcover through Kickstarter that did really, really well. And after that happened, all the companies that had rejected publishing it all of a sudden wanted to publish it. So I chose to go with Image, and I continued the story. But the problem is that I had to, with the new God Hates Astronauts series, I had to explain a lot and reestablish a lot because a lot of people had not read it before. So the second volume has a lot of reestablishing of things, and then once you get into the third volume is really where the story starts to have some actual consequences and important moments for the characters.
All right, so volumes 1 and 2 are sort of the nice recap to jumping on point, I guess.
Yeah, volume one that Image put out a softcover edition of the hardcover that I had self-published. And that collects all the webcomic and a bunch of origin stories that I had other artists draw that I wrote. And basically everything, it was basically, at that time, I call it the completely complete edition because it contained everything that I'd ever done in God Hates Astronauts. But so then Volume 2 is where the new Image Monthly series started. So Volume 2 and Volume 3 are issues 1 through 10 of the Image Monthly series. So they kind of start with a little bit of an introduction to characters again and reset things up a little bit.
I see. That's interesting because I did sort of notice there was this couple is together and that had been stated a couple of times by the time I was in issue 2. So that makes a lot of sense now.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and that's been the big fight is when the new series started was trying to get people to get the first trade. Because most books don't have a trade before they have issue 1, but that's just the way that mine worked, and it didn't really make financial sense to release that first trade in single issues ahead of it. So now that I have it as 3 trades and people are finding out about the series more, it's easier for them to point them to trade 1 and have them jump on from the start.
Well, that makes sense because it's more of a complete series that way,
yeah.
Right? People are already expecting to find the first issue.
Sure, yeah.
I see. And were collectors, were they disappointed when they got issue 1 and then was there a misconception about what volume 1 was?
Yeah, there was a lot of confusion. I mean, it kind of hurt the series a little bit, but it also, I didn't, I wanted to continue the series. I didn't want to start it completely over. It's kind of I think of it like the Evil Dead movies, whereas Evil Dead 1 wasn't seen very much, and so with Evil Dead 2, they had to kind of reinvent the story. So it's a sequel, but it's also a partial retelling of the first movie. So it's got that kind of element of reintroducing to a new, wider audience.
Well, and I feel like it's almost more respectful to your past readers that way because you're not discounting everything that they spend reading.
Yeah, and it's stuff that the story that I wanted to keep telling. I'd set up so much through the first volume that it was a story that I wanted to keep going with. So it didn't really interest me to just make a new start for the whole series. I mean, I made it so that if you pick up issue 1 of the ongoing series, which takes place after the first volume, you can read it and you can understand what's going on. But as it gets into it, it really benefits if you've read the first volume.
That makes sense. Let's see. There's something else. So one of the other things I've always really liked about your books are all of the shout-outs and the side joke. Who is Merryweather T. Snopple?
I don't know.
Do we ever get to meet her?
We do, actually. You meet her in Blast Furnace. and it's like a surprise unveil towards the end of Blast Furnace, because all my books take place in the same universe, and I'm just slowly letting them bleed into each other. So yes, we do find out who she is.
Awesome. So tell us a little bit about Blast Furnace. That's your other project?
Yeah, Blast Furnace was a project I started when I started working professionally in comics. I did a book called Smoke and Mirrors for IDW, and I wanted to keep doing webcomics. So Blast Furnace was an exercise I created where I would write and draw a page in an hour. And so it was basically so I could have a webcomic that updated every single day while I was busy drawing professionally, like serious stuff. So I did a page a day, an hour per page for 6 months, and then I collected it into a book because people stopped reading the webcomic and it was kind of a bummer. So I just quit the book. I always wanted to do it for 12 issues, and then when I had the trade, it slowly gained a fan base. So last year I went back and did the final 6 issues, and then I colored it all and did a Kickstarter for it. So I have it's a 280-page book that's now for full color, but I spent only an hour on each page and made no revisions. So I just kind of thought on the fly. I call it an improv comic because I just kind of thought on the fly and made it up as I went along.
Wow, that's really cool. Almost like the hourly comic days or 24-hour comics.
Yeah, it started like a 24-hour comic.
Okay.
That's God Hates Astronauts was originally a 24-hour comic. That's where it started. And in the first volume, I reprint that 24-hour comic, which is like a weird alternate reality version of God Hates Astronauts.
Oh, okay.
So I really like doing that. I really like thinking that way and working that way. So that was the idea of the Blast Furnace. I do a 24-hour comic, but I just do a page a day for an entire year.
That's awesome. Yeah, what a great exercise. All right, guys. Well, that was the wonderfully creative Ryan Browne. I think it's really interesting that you come up with all this stuff on the fly like that. Like, in part, it explains so much, and in part, it's just like, I don't know how I could ever be that creative. Like, holy crap.
Yeah, I mean, it's the type of thing, if I try to really think too hard, it becomes stilted. I'm better when I just say screw it and just throw it out there and just hope that it works.
That's amazing. All right, guys, go check him out. What is your website, sir?
You can see GodHatesAstronauts.com is where you can find stuff. You can read the first chapter of Blast Furnace at BlastFurnaceComic.com. And I have a new website called Wizord.horse. It's a .horse. I bought a .horse. They exist. I'm pretty excited about it. So Wizord.horse is a new one.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yep.
All right, guys. We'll see you later. Bye.